The distant stars shone with an unyielding brilliance, a silent witness to the events unfolding in the vast reaches of the galaxy. Across the fabric of space, beyond the nebulae and gas clouds, far from the eyes of any sentient species that had dared to venture this far, the Vrathians prowled. They were the most feared and ruthless species the galaxy had ever known. No race, no matter how advanced, had ever challenged their dominance without suffering swift and unrelenting annihilation. The Vrathians were a terrifying sight to behold. Standing over 8 feet tall, their bodies were built like living war machines, muscular, broad, and powerful. Their skin was a smooth obsidian black, and their eyes glowed with a feral crimson intensity. Razor-sharp claws and elongated fangs completed their predatory appearance. They were born for war, raised to dominate. They could survive in the harshest of environments, and their intelligence was unparalleled in battle. When they entered a system, entire fleets of lesser species turned tail and fled, unwilling to even attempt resistance. Their empire spanned across dozens of star systems. The galaxies had all but accepted the dominance of the Vrathians as an unchanging fact. For centuries, their fleets had hunted, conquered, and reduced civilizations to rubble. Resistance was futile. Every species they came into contact with soon learned the same lesson. Vrathians do not lose. They are not bullied or subjected to uselessness. Iron Ring no such thing. It was during one of their routine campaigns, following the eradication of an ancient species known as the Clithians, that the Vrathian fleet stumbled upon an anomaly. They had just completed a brutal siege on the Clithian homeworld, their ships now sailing through the void, leaving the shattered remnants of the planet behind. The Vrathians were already preparing for their next conquest when a curious signal emerged from the fringes of their territory. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there, unmistakable. Someone or something was sending a message. It was a signal far from the known territories of any species the Vrathians had encountered. "Commander Kazarath, we've intercepted something unusual." The voice of the scout officer crackled over the comms. It was a young Vrathian, his voice laced with caution. Kazurath, the commander of the Vrathian fleet, was an imposing figure, even among his own kind. His massive frame, like all Vrathians, was an epitome of raw power. He had led countless successful campaigns, crushing any who dared to defy them, and no one had ever dared question his command. He grunted in acknowledgement, his crimson eyes narrowing as he turned toward the holographic console. "Show me," Kazarath said, his voice a deep rumble. The young officer obediently complied, bringing up the image of the signal. It wasn't like any communication the Vrathians had encountered before. The frequency was strange, dissonant, almost as though it had been deliberately masked. Yet it was still recognizable as a form of intelligent communication. The message was not in a language they could easily decode, but there was an unmistakable pattern in the static. A structure. Something, someone was out there. Kazurath's eyes flashed with curiosity. The Vrathians were accustomed to crushing lesser species with ease, but this was unexpected, a challenge perhaps. His fleet was large, his forces unmatched, and yet this anomaly suggested there might be something or someone out there capable of confronting them. "Are there any known species in this area?" Kazurath demanded, his tone cold and commanding. The scout officer hesitated for a moment before replying. "No, Commander. We've never encountered any species from this part of the galaxy. This signal is coming from uncharted space." "Uncharted?" Kazurath's voice was a low growl. "This will be interesting." Without hesitation, he issued the order to investigate the signal's source. The fleet turned its course toward the unknown, their massive warships cutting through the void at terrifying speeds. The Vrathian ships, equipped with the most advanced technology of any known species, powered forward into the darkness of space. Hours passed as the fleet ventured deeper into the uncharted region. As they approached the coordinates, the signal grew stronger, its dissonance sharpening. But even as they closed in on its origin, there was an unsettling silence that seemed to stretch beyond the confines of their ships. The fleet arrived at the edge of a star system, orbiting a lonely, desolate planet. The planet was barren, its surface scarred, the remains of ancient craters marking the passage of time. No signs of life, no bustling cities, no fleets of warships. It was a forgotten world, neglected by even the most ambitious of species. Yet, the signal emanated from here, from the shadowed surface of the dead planet. Kazorth's gaze never wavered as he gave the order to deploy. A team of elite Varathian soldiers boarded a smaller assault shuttle, prepared to land on the planet's surface and investigate the source of the signal. The cold, lifeless atmosphere outside the ship contrasted sharply with the ferocity of the warriors who prepared to step onto the unknown world. Their hearts beat with the thrill of battle. They were prepared to conquer whatever lay ahead. The shuttle's doors opened with a hiss as the soldiers descended onto the surface. The sky above was a dull red, the sun a pale, flickering light in the distance. The air was thin and toxic, the winds carrying a strange hum that seemed almost alive. The Vrathians' advanced helmets shielded them from the harsh conditions, but even their technologically superior gear couldn't stop the unease from spreading among them. "Commander, we've located the source," one of the soldiers radioed in, his voice filled with disbelief. "It's not a structure, it's a ship." Kazoroth's eyes narrowed. "A ship? In this wasteland? What kind of ship?" The soldier hesitated. We're not sure, Commander. It's unlike anything we've ever seen."
The galaxy was vast, and the Vrathians had spent centuries mastering its darkest corners. They had hunted, dominated, and wiped out entire civilizations, their fleet as unrelenting as the stars themselves. They had never met a species capable of challenging them, never once doubted that they were the supreme predators of the cosmos. But now, in the desolate cold of an unexplored region, their empire faced an unprecedented uncertainty. Kazoroth's warship was eerily silent as it drifted away from the dead planet. His massive hands gripped the armrests of his command chair, his eyes locked onto the view screen. The image of the mysterious ship from the surface of the barren world still lingered in his mind. What kind of vessel had they encountered? It had resisted their weapons, absorbed their energy blasts as though they were nothing more than irritations. He had never seen anything like it. And then there was the voice, the way it echoed through the comms, cold and firm. It had been full of authority, almost as if the speaker knew exactly who they were, where they came from, and what they were capable of. The word human had echoed in Kazoroth's mind over and over again, even as the planet's surface had cracked and crumbled beneath them. Humans. The word carried weight, but it also carried uncertainty. The Vrathians had never encountered them before, nor had any species in the galaxy ever claimed to know anything of them. That was, until now. Something about this encounter was different. The messaging no. The warning had been clear. They were not welcome. They were not feared. They were merely told to leave. But to the Vrathians, the message was more than a threat. It was a challenge, and Kazoroth had never backed down from a challenge. "Report," Kazoroth growled into the comms, his voice like thunder in the otherwise still command room. The communications officer, his furrowed brow reflecting the unease that rippled through the crew, hesitated before speaking. "Commander, the planet's surface a broken bar. It's completely gone. We were not prepared for this kind of energy. There was a massive pulse. All our sensors, every connection to the planet, they've been cut off. The system is dead. Kazorat clenched his jaw. The hum of his ship's engines reverberated through the walls, but it didn't match the tension that was building within him. What are the chances that the broken bar human race has developed something capable of such power? His voice was cold, sharp. The idea that another species could hold such power disturbed him. The Vrathians were unrivaled. How could they be outclassed by something so unknown, minimal? The officer responded, "No species known to us has technology anywhere near what we saw." The ship's hull seemed a broken bar fluid, and the weaponry, if you could even call it that, was unlike anything we've encountered. It didn't simply fire, it absorbed and redirected our attacks. Our cannons couldn't even breach the surface. Kazorat's eyes narrowed, and his mind raced. He was a warlord, one who had led the Vrathians through countless victories. Yet, as the weight of this unknown species' power pressed against him, doubt flickered in his mind. He had never felt so unsettled. But he would not show weakness, not to his crew, not to his enemies. "We will not let them escape us. Prepare to enter the planet's atmosphere," he ordered with unyielding resolve. "We will find them, and we will make them understand who rules this galaxy." On the surface of the dead planet, beneath the wreckage of the battle that had taken place, a strange hum began to pulse through the ground. The ships that had once assaulted the mysterious craft now lay scattered across the barren landscape, their systems short-circuited, their crew abandoned to the eerie quiet of the planet's surface. The skies overhead were empty and no ships, no pursuit. The Vrathians had never expected this, but the ship they had encountered, the human vessel, was far from inactive. Hidden within its core, beneath layers of alien technology, something stirred. Inside the command center of the ship, a human figure moved with deliberate speed. His face was set with determination, but his eyes held something else, something far colder. This was Captain Aiden Foster, a man who had been at the forefront of humanity's greatest military achievement, the USS Victory. The Victory was no ordinary ship. It had been engineered for speed, precision, and most importantly, survival. Its technology had been developed by the brightest minds on Earth, working tirelessly to overcome the limitations of the known universe. The ship was equipped with artificial intelligence systems that could outthink entire fleets of enemy ships, shields that adapted to every form of energy, and weapons capable of piercing even the most durable armor. But what truly set the Victory apart was its crew. They were survivors, trained, disciplined, and above all, relentless. "Captain, the fleet is moving toward us," the voice of Lieutenant Collie Walker crackled over the intercom. "They're making a second attempt to land on the planet's surface." Aiden didn't flinch. He had known the Vrathians would come again. They were too proud, too eager to destroy what they didn't understand. "Are we ready?" Aiden's voice was calm, controlled, as always. His deep-set blue eyes gleamed with a sharp, calculating focus. He had been a soldier for too long not to recognize the familiar patterns of aggression. The Vrathians would never retreat, and they would never be satisfied with anything less than total destruction. "We've adapted the new ion disruptors. The shields will hold. The Victory can handle it." "Good," Aiden muttered, glancing down at a small, intricate map of the planet's surface. "Prepare the shuttle. We're going down there." "Sir, you're going yourself?" Lieutenant Walker sounded incredulous. "You know it's too dangerous. We can't risk." "I'm not risking anything," Aiden interjected. "We need to find out exactly what they want. If they're willing to destroy a whole planet over this, we need to understand why. Besides, we've already done the impossible by surviving this long." He stood up and moved toward the shuttle bay without another word, his boots clicking against the metal floor with every step. The crew didn't question him further. They never did. Aiden was a leader, and his instincts had kept them alive long enough to make it this far. In truth, the fear wasn't in his heart, it was in their minds. The Vrathians were fierce, unrelenting, and more brutal than any enemy they had faced. But Aiden Foster was prepared for this. If humanity was to stand a chance, they had to face their worst fear head-on. The shuttle blasted off, cutting through the atmosphere toward the desolate surface below. The planet's ruined landscape stretched out beneath them, and nothing but dark craters, jagged rocks, and the remnants of a once thriving world. It felt like they were descending into the heart of oblivion. But Aiden had faced worse. When the shuttle touched down with a soft thud, Aiden's boots hit the dusty surface. He surveyed the landscape, his expression unreadable. The abandoned ships of the Vrathians lay scattered around him like broken toys. Their menacing shapes, once symbols of fear and power, were now impotent husks. The tide had turned. Their fleet is still in orbit. Walker's voice came through his comms. We can't hold them off much longer. We don't need to, Aiden replied, a dark smile flickering across his face. They'll find out soon enough that we're not like the others they've crushed. As he looked around, a feeling of calm settled over him. The situation was dire, but Aiden understood the stakes. This wasn't just about surviving. This was about showing the Vrathians, showing the entire galaxy that humanity was not just another species to be subjugated. They were capable of more than just survival. They were capable of revenge. A flicker of movement caught his attention, a silhouette on the horizon. A figure emerged from the distance, its shape distorted by the rising dust. Aiden's hand instinctively moved toward his weapon, but the figure raised both hands in a gesture of peace. It was a human. Captain Foster, the figure called out in a familiar voice, and Aiden's heart skipped a beat. It was Lieutenant Commander Leah Dawson, his closest confidant. But how? How had she ? Before he could ask, the answer became clear. They were not alone. The Vrathian threat was just the beginning. Something far greater was unfolding, and Aiden knew, with a certainty he had never felt before, that humanity's true battle was just beginning. This version of Chapter 2 elaborates on the encounter with the Vrathians, the tensions surrounding the mysterious human response, and the deepening mystery of the human force behind the actions. Aiden Foster's role becomes clearer as he takes charge, and the stakes rise as humanity prepares for the real conflict ahead. The sound of a massive, thundering explosion reverberated across the dark skies of the desolate planet, and the ground trembled beneath the boots of Captain Aiden Foster and his crew. The towering silhouette of the Vrathian fleet hovered ominously above, the massive ships glinting against the pale light of the distant star. Even in this hostile, abandoned world, the Vrathians seemed confident, eager, and ready for vengeance. Yet the quiet on the planet's surface was deceiving. Below the empty, dusty surface, something far greater than the Vrathians had anticipated was stirring. This world, long forgotten by the rest of the galaxy, hid secrets that could change the course of the entire war for survival. Aiden's mind raced, but his composure never faltered. His hand instinctively rested on the hilt of his plasma sidearm as he surveyed the surroundings, his sharp blue eyes scanning the horizon, seeking any movement that might signal the approach of danger. His crew stood behind him, all battle-hardened and ready for whatever came next. "Lieutenant Dawson," Aiden said, his voice low but urgent. "What's our status? Can we still communicate with the Victory?" Lieutenant Dawson, her expression grim, checked the readings on her wrist console. "We've lost all long-range communication with the Victory, sir. The signal jamming from the Vrathians is too powerful. They're closing in, and we're isolated." Aiden looked up toward the enormous, looming vessels in orbit. There were no immediate signs of their descent, but they were closing it too close. The Vrathians would no doubt descend upon them with the full force of their warships. And while Aiden had no illusions about humanity's raw strength, he had learned to respect the ruthless efficiency of the Vrathian fleet. "What's the status of the Victory's ion disruptors? Can we disable their ships?" Dawson glanced at her console again. "We can hit them with a few ion bursts, but the Victory shields are down. We'll need to buy more time before we can make a full retreat." Aiden's eyes hardened with resolve. "We won't retreat. We're going to hit them first." "With all due respect, sir, we don't have the numbers to take on their entire fleet," Dawson said, her tone more than a little anxious. "We've got what? A handful of shuttles? We can't. I'm not asking you to charge at them, Dawson." Aiden's voice cut through her objections like a blade. He locked eyes with her, the calm fury in his gaze unmistakable. "We're not running. We're sending them a message. If they think we're easy prey, they'll regret it." Dawson's hesitation was brief, and she nodded, recognizing the steel in his voice. She knew Aiden's strategy. He wasn't one to rely solely on brute force. He was a master of psychological warfare, of tactics that disoriented and wore down his enemies. And right now, The Vrathians had underestimated humanity. Understood, Dawson said, her lips curling into a brief, determined smile. We're with you, sir. As Dawson turned to relay the orders to the rest of the crew, Aiden stood still for a moment longer, allowing himself to soak in the weight of the situation. They had faced the void before, and yet this felt different. Humanity was outclassed, outgunned. Yet there was one advantage they had over the Vrathians, a secret they had kept hidden, a weapon they had yet to unleash. The victory. His thoughts turned to the ship. The victory was humanity's pride, its legacy a marvel of human engineering. More than a military vessel, it was a symbol of human resilience. He had fought with the crew on countless missions, and despite their losses, despite the battles they had fought together, there had always been one rule that had held them together: never give up. And now, they had to rely on that rule more than ever before. Aiden tapped his earpiece. Victory. This is Captain Aiden Foster. Do you read me? There was no response, just static. He frowned, knowing that it was not just the planet's interference. The Vrathians had perfected the art of disrupting communication, yet even in the face of this, Aiden was undeterred. They could deal with the external threats later. Right now, there was something far more pressing: the ship, the planet, and, of course, the humans who had sent the warning. He turned to Dawson. Prepare the shuttle. We're going back to that ship. The shuttle's engines roared to life as it lifted off, rising high into the red-tinged sky of the barren planet. Aiden and his crew watched from the window as the planet's ruined landscape shrank beneath them. The Victory remained above, its presence a constant reminder of humanity's struggle to survive against the odds. As the shuttle broke through the planet's atmosphere, Aiden turned to Dawson. I want a full scan of that vessel. What kind of technology are we dealing with here? Dawson, who had been studying the ship's strange properties since their initial encounter, nodded. It's not just about power. The ship's design is a broken bar, almost biological in nature. The hull reacts to energy inputs as if it has a form of self-awareness. I've never seen anything like it. Aiden raised an eyebrow. A living ship, possibly, Dawson replied, her voice edged with intrigue. We don't know yet, but that's the direction we're heading. Aiden's brow furrowed as he stared out the shuttle window. Then we need to understand it before they do. We can't afford to be in the dark. The shuttle's engines hummed as they neared the alien ship. This time, as they approached, there was no glowing symbol pulsating on its surface. No sign of movement, just a calm, almost eerie stillness. It was like staring at a sleeping giant. Aiden's grip tightened around the armrest as he gave the order for the shuttle to land. They would find answers. They had to. As the shuttle touched down gently on the ship's surface, the landing ramp descended with a hiss. Aiden and his team disembarked quickly, weapons at the ready, scanning their surroundings. The atmosphere was thick with tension, the silence almost deafening. It was as if the very ship itself was holding its breath. They moved quickly, advancing through the strange, organic corridors of the vessel. The walls seemed to pulse with life, their smooth, alien surface shimmering as if reacting to their presence. As they ventured deeper, the crew was forced to rely on their instincts, as their technology provided little to no useful readings. The ship was unlike anything they had encountered before. Captain, Dawson said, breaking the silence, we've found something, a broken bar, unusual. Aiden glanced at her, his expression unreadable. What is it? She stepped toward a large chamber at the center of the ship, her gaze locked onto a strange, pulsating core suspended in the middle of the room. The light from the core illuminated the entire space, casting an otherworldly glow on the walls around them. It was alive in a way that Aiden had never seen before. There's a broken bar. This is no ship, Dawson said, her voice tinged with awe. It's an organism, a living entity. This entire structure, it's a broken bar. It's organic, but it's been engineered to perfection. Aiden stepped forward, his heart pounding. The realization hit him with full force. The warning, the message, the power, it was all coming together. This wasn't a ship. This wasn't technology. This was something else entirely, something alive. The humans who sent that message, Aiden muttered to himself, a sense of foreboding creeping into his thoughts. They weren't warning us about the Vrathians. They were warning us about themselves. Sir? Dawson looked at him, confusion in her eyes. Aiden turned toward her, his expression hardened with resolve. "We're not dealing with a species. We're dealing with a force, a living, evolving force capable of unimaginable destruction." He stepped closer to the core, feeling the energy pulse beneath his feet. The room seemed to hum with power, an energy unlike anything he had felt before. "This isn't just a message," he said quietly. "It's a declaration." From behind them, there came a soft sound, almost like a whisper of faint, melodic hum that reverberated through the walls. Aiden's hand instinctively went to his sidearm. A voice echoed in the chamber, familiar yet chilling. "You are not meant to understand, human, but you will, in time." Aiden's blood ran cold. The voice that had once been distant and impersonal on the comm was now clear, resounding through the ship with an unmistakable authority. It was not a threat, it was a promise. And in that moment, Aiden realized with horrifying clarity that the humans who had sent the message were no mere survivors of a galaxy-wide conflict. They were something far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. They were not running from the Varathians, they were hunting them.